Welcome to Sachs Realty's Tuesday Night Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. Each week, we deliver expert information enabling you to make better informed decisions while keeping more money in your pocket. If you're interested in real estate, this is your show. Hey guys, welcome to our Tuesday Night Podcast. We are live and we have a great guest tonight. And of course, Melissa with me as always. And a lot to unpack here tonight, guys. We are headed into March. That's tomorrow. So this is the time of year where us agents in the real estate market have anticipated this time. We've either prepared for it up to this point. I mean, traditionally we come off of a slow market. We go through the holiday season. We get through the winter months. And then we're very expectant as our buyers and sellers of this next couple of months. And I'm here to tell you that already we are starting out in a very, very scary market in the housing industry. And Scott Walters is a fellow realtor. You know, he's got his realtor pin on tonight on his tie here. And guys, the reason why this show is going to be so special tonight is because though myself and Scott both have YouTube channels and we have been, dedicated to continually bringing our audiences up to date, bringing them through this market since about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, when we started talking about the turning of the tides and the bubble, the overinflated housing market. And so tonight, guys, the reason it's so special is because Scott and I both, and Melissa also included in that, we're in this industry. We work in the trenches. We work every day with buyers and sellers. And so we're not just YouTubers. This isn't just, a crash channel, as some of you guys might say. I mean, we're coming with lots of years of experience. I've been serving the housing market since 1989. I'm going to turn it over to Scott here. Let him introduce himself. Guys, we're so glad that you're with us tonight. And we've got a great show. Scott, man, thanks for jumping in here with us, buddy. Tell everybody a little bit about you, how long you've been in the business, and guys, what we're going to learn tonight, Scott.
Well, thanks for having me on. I hope you guys can hear me okay. It's always an honor and a privilege to be amongst you, but more importantly, I would say our viewers today, because they're really the reason we're here. Without them, we don't have YouTube channels. Without them, we don't, have we don't do business even outside of YouTube. So for me, it's always been, hey, listen, this is a real estate bubble. It's exhibiting bubble behavior. I'm benefiting from this, but I have to warn people. I lived through 2008. I saw this before. It's exhibiting way too much behavior that's reminding me of this. If you want to sit this one out, I'm willing to earn your business later. I think as a real estate agent, you're going to respect me much more if I'm willing to make that commitment to you. And what I saw in the euphoria was agents cherry picking buyers. Oh, if you're not pre-qualified, if you don't have all cash, if you're not ready to make an offer tomorrow, and not just any offer, over asking price, I'm not even going to take your call. And that is ridiculous to me. So I fell out of love with my industry when they normalized this in that way. Now, that's not every realtor. I felt like it really was. So for me, I mean, that's what it just comes down to, Todd. I'm here ringing the bell. I'm here sounding the alarm. I'm letting people know, if you've thought this, I'm a real estate agent that's now saying it. I'm saying what you've been actually thinking. And the unfortunate part about this one, it could have been avoided. We overstimulated the biggest asset class in the world that's capable of collapsing the U.S. economy. Those are the facts. That's the seriousness of the waters we're now swimming in. So it's really dangerous for anybody to sugarcoat that and tell you things like date the rate, marry the house, whatever, just try to get you to buy. Now, for me personally, I'm helping customers, a lot of my subscribers all over the nation now, a nationwide reach. What a gift that is, to be able to have that type of reach. But the number one thing I really say, all real estate is very localized, right? We all know that. Some of your areas, or mine where I'm sitting at today, behaving relatively, I wouldn't say normal, but I mean, it's still hanging on, while other areas are exhibiting the front end of a spectacular crash, right? And so with contagion in this bubble being a more present component, and I know like our friend Travis over at the Real Estate Mindset talks about, we've got a lot of black swans swirling around out there that could completely come in and take a bite out of this apple. But I think contagion, I think this one moves a little quicker. It reaches a little deeper, and it's got a lot of that capable of doing its thing. But it really comes down to now examining each property individually. Days on market, price reductions. Do we test it with an offer? Does it pencil out? Is my cost to own cheaper than the cost to rent? Simple to protect people. Because if I help you buy today and it's cheaper for you to own that house than to rent it, well, I might get your business again in a few years from now when we put a renter in there and you say, hey, I saved up another down payment. Can you help me see if another property pencils out? Willing to stay the duration with people and not only earn their first sale, their second, their third, their fourth. I didn't see that out of the industry in this one. I saw people trying to just get the sale done at any cost, not caring about their customers, not putting their customers' needs before their own. That's why I'm here. That's how I got here, guys.
Yep. And we're going to dive in deep. Melissa, good to see you.
It's good to see you. And Scott, it's great to have you back all the way from California. We appreciate you so much. We value your insight. We know that our viewers do too. And that's why, we have you here. And just reinforces what Todd has to say every week. And thank you for that. And all of our viewers, moderator Melissa here, and there's so many of you that are reporting what's going on in your neck of the woods. A lot of you have questions, thoughts on what you think is happening. We're going to get to them as best as we can. We had over 900 last week, so I know it's going to be another busy night tonight, but thank you so much. And Todd, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, and I want to add to that too. And Saturday, I posted a video, guys, about we dove into a couple markets and that there was, an article out where the housing market had declined $2.3 trillion, from its peak last May, April, May, June, whatever market you're in. We all saw different peaks. And, that the average, I think, was 11.5% decline in median price on average across the country. And I covered a half a dozen of the markets, and I had asked the viewers to email me, markets that they would like information on. And guys, if you're listening tonight, I have not forgotten you. I was absolutely slammed with that, suggestion, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to get to each and every one of you. It may take me to the end of this week to get back to you, but I will. I promise I will get back to you with data that you're looking for in your market. And, before we kind of dive in too much, there are two things I want to talk about to start the show. Three things I want to talk about. Number one, if you're a real estate agent and you're listening to this show live, or you're listening to this show after it's live, I'm going to encourage you. One of the things that's so amazing about our audience and our viewers are the chat during the show and the comments that we get afterwards. And the reason why I would love for you guys to make sure that when you're replaying this, that you're reading the chat as it goes along is, guys, I want you to understand the impact that this industry has on the lives of our audience and the people that aren't even listening, that don't even know about this channel. But this is just a small sampling of what people are feeling and what people are experiencing. And guys, what I want to say most importantly is that a lot of times business owners, they navigate for years through business and they really never understand the needs of the public. They really never understand the buyer's needs if you're in this business, or the seller's needs, what their expectations are from us as professionals in this industry. And guys, and to the audience tonight, I want you to be real. I want you to go ahead, because we do have agents that watch this show, whether they like to admit it or not. We have agents locally, whether they like to admit it or not. They watch this show. Some of them do admit it. Some of them call us up. Some of them tell us that they agree with us, and some say that they don't. But I'm trusting that, as always, our viewers, our audience is going to stay committed to letting your voices be heard to the industry. So I thank you for that. Number two, I want to talk about a article, and I want to turn my screen over, and I'm not really good at this kind of stuff, so just be patient with me here while I try and do this. I think I've got it. I want to go over maybe, yeah, there we go. All right. So I want to just kind of go over an article, and the reason why this article is so important, because I know, guys, that as we're covering the market, and Scott's going to bring a lot of data and intel with him tonight as well. And if you guys haven't, if you don't know who Scott Walters is, number one, you're going to love him tonight. And then if you don't know who he is and you haven't checked out his channel, I will drop his channel link, or you can just simply search at Scott Walters in YouTube in the search bar and find his channel. It would be great if you would subscribe to him and let him know that you enjoyed him being on our show. But I want to pull your attention here, because one of the things that I hear probably the loudest and the most, and it's very frustrating from professionals that have been in this business that can smell it and taste the same similarities as other downturns. It's important that we look to what other industry experts say here. And this is a Fannie Mae news article. Okay. This wasn't published last year. This wasn't published in January. This was published on February 21st of 2023. And I want you to just understand that on FannieMae.com, this article headlines, "Economy off to surprisingly strong start in 2023, but it's not expected to last. Housing activity also received a temporary bump, but fundamentals point to a further weakness ahead of expected recession." And guys, so the importance that I really wanted to kind of start off with and say that, see if I could stop screen. There we go. And say that because I want you to understand fully that this is not just what Todd Sachs is saying or Scott Walters is saying. Okay. This is not what maybe your neighborhood realtor is saying, or your loan officers are saying, but this bubble is the most inflated still housing bubble that I've ever experienced. And then the third thing I want to just kind of, before we dive into the show, and guys, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, we love it if you do that. Hit the subscribe and then the alert bell. You'll know when we upload, just like this. We're live Tuesday nights. We try and upload another couple of times during the week, bringing you any updates or market news as it comes along. But I had a conversation today with one of our agents, and this is a very good agent and a very caring agent and a hustler. I mean, the guy's a go-getter. He works hard for his clients. And he said to me today, "I'd like for you to do a video on what to do for the people that can't afford their homes, that have bought in the last year or two and they can't afford their home. They realize that they made a mistake." And I had to have a real heart-to-heart conversation. And basically what I had to say, guys, was, I don't know what to say. I don't know what I can say to that. I honestly don't know what I can tell you. If you are struggling, and maybe you are, maybe you have a situation that you feel comfortable sharing that you could comment in. If not, you could send me an email, and I would keep it at the most strictest of confidential, strictest confidence. And I would be able to share that anonymously in our next live stream. But this is just a concern that one of our agents has. Well, we're all concerned, but this is a concern that one of our agents brought forth and said, Todd, can you publish a video to help these people that can't afford their home? And guys, so, and I think when Scott and I are, and all the other, Travis is on here, Real Estate Mindset. We love Travis. He does a great job. He's been in the industry too, on the mortgage side of things, the sales side of things, guys. But what we're trying to do is not like some people say, we joke, Travis likes to call himself Crash Bro, but all seriousness, we are just trying to deliver what we're seeing and what, you may not be hearing in your backyard. And we cannot turn our heads away from the facts of where we are. Scott, you want to pick up from there and kind of, what's going on in California? I saw it.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's tricky because, I attend a lot of sales meetings too with agents. And, I know a lot of agents are just afraid to talk about the things we're talking about. We're really just acknowledging the elephant in the room. I think the cat's purely out of the bag now. Like Todd opened the show with, I think because we came to YouTube prior to interest rate hikes, we looked really crazy for warning people because the whole buy the dip, the money dump, the casino climate, you couldn't lose. And it always goes back to me for one of the greatest quotes I love is Warren Buffett, billionaire, owner of Berkshire Hathaway, be fearful when others are greedy. And I said, he's right. I think I'm going to play it safe right now. And he did himself. He got heavier in cash than he's ever been in his financial life. And then it says, be fearful when others are greedy, greedy when others are fearful. So the cat's really out of the bag now. It's getting really hard for anybody trying to cheerlead the market to try to find anything positive now that says, now you maybe are going to get somebody that's going to say, well, yeah, we might have a correction. Just a correction, though. No 2008 style crash here. Well, I understand out of self-preservation, you got financial gain in the markets. You have to cheerlead. You probably went out and bought a house yourself in the height. In fact, if your income goes down, you might be in worse shape than your client. So I get it. I get you might have to cheerlead these markets. But I think the cat's out of the bag now. Because now when interest rate hikes came, that changed everything. Overnight. So even the last narrative that I really saw being prevalent was, well, due to a lack of inventory, we'll still have a lot of demand. But then here came those interest rates. And even with that limited inventory, that historically low inventory, it outpaced demand. So all markets are going to behave a little differently. So where do we see the most investor involvement? Buying land and building homes. Prior to interest rate hikes, they broke ground prior to interest rates. And then that was the ultimate rug pull. They're out there in the desert right now trying to finish homes. These FOMO factory model homes that they tour with an on-site salesperson to get you in fall in love with finishes and color trends. I love it. To overpay for that house. Now they're offering incentives, rate buydowns. Rate buydowns is a whole nother video. Rate buydowns is an ARM mortgage, an adjustable rate mortgage, and you can't even lock it in for 5 years like you maybe could do with an ARM. You're going to lock it in for a year, maybe 2. Oh, but don't worry, the Fed's going to pivot. You can just refi. Oh, how do you know? Do you have a crystal ball? You want to gamble with my financial future, the biggest purchase? I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone over here sometimes. So I know you guys just need somebody to cut through the chatter and give you some real talk. And the realities are, I'm excited right now because, be fearful when others are greedy, greedy when others are fearful. What's sweeping the nation now? Fear, panic. The best time to buy is when there's blood in the streets. We've learned that from Warren Buffett. Be greedy when others are fearful. So let's look at properties and see if they pencil out and warrant an offer. And don't fall in love with the property because we might not make it stick. As soon as you fall in love with the property, they got us. That's why those FOMO factories were able to do what they did in the bubble. But now even they they're in big trouble, friends. You know how many homes they have sitting out there empty, sucking air right now? A lot.
Yeah, I've been seeing a whole lot of vacant houses. Yeah. Here locally, a lot of vacant houses.
Yeah, so I guess where I'm sitting here today, I get, I live in an episode of $1 Million Listing out here. It's ridiculous. So typically what I say, if if you're in my city, and I help people all over America now, I'm very fortunate, but if you're in my city, I was just talking tonight, I was at the store, ran into a buddy of mine, and we hadn't seen each other for a while, and he was talking about how you might want to sell. And I said, well, what are you going to do if you sell now? I mean, you might still be able to get a premium, but if you just have to go buy at the top, like that doesn't make sense. So, I guess my point was to him, listen, I would just go ahead. He owns his house free and clear. I'm like, I don't even know why you're selling. You own your house free and clear. And we're going to answer that question on what you can do right now if you bought in the bubble and went upside down. I'm going to help you guys. And you can help people too by hopefully passing this information along because you probably know somebody. But some areas will be the last to get hit if and when. It's an if, right? I can't guarantee that we're going to have a correction, recession, or depression. I can't guarantee that. I would just say statistically, one of those is coming. We're already in the correction phase because we identified the top of the biggest bubble ever produced in world history. It's now reverse course. We see the downward trend has started. Where's it going to stop? Now, that's the million-dollar question. Well, if we look at the height of this bubble, never seen before highs in record pace, I don't think it magically stops tomorrow. I can tell you that. But where I'm sitting today here in California, this area in the last 2008 bubble, which is the bubble we all want to pull from because some of us lived through that, one, and worked in the industry, this will be the last area to get hit and the first to climb out of it because it's a tourist destination. It's a destination location. But we're not, I always say we might be recession insulated in that respect, but that doesn't necessarily, we're recession proof because we saw big price declines in the last bubble as well. We might just see it coming a little quicker, but some people will be paralyzed by fear, unable to operate within it, or they're just in denial, just pure denial. So for me, I always say, well, the first step of getting past a problem, admit there's a problem, then acceptance. Acceptance gets you out of denial. So my job is to help, hopefully, people wake up, accept the situation, understand the waters we're in, and then if you're upside down in your asset, try to get you to navigate through that thing.
I don't think Melissa will get some questions here from our audience, but I think that Scott, a lot of even in what we would consider to be recession-proof areas, everybody likes a deal. Right. I mean, in some of our wealthiest, I mean, you even said, they're on the sidelines just waiting to pounce. Right. They want to take advantage of the situation because everybody wants a deal. So, I mean, if you have the money and you can capitalize or take advantage of somebody else's downturn or hardship, there will always be people there in line to do that, to, grab that equity and things like that. But, the interesting thing enough is our world revolves around comparable sales and with that appraisals and things like that. And so I was talking with another one of my agents today and we were talking about over asking price. We have a situation where the list price is the list price and you may have a buyer that's still displaying exuberance to where they want to get in and compete. But, it's been about 6 or 7 months now since I've seen a appraisal gap contingency, where somebody's willing to overpay. They may say, okay, I'll jump in, I'll compete. I see the value, I think the peak's done. I can afford the lifestyle. I can spend another 50 grand on the house. If I overpaid 50 grand on a $400,000 house, I'll survive it. I've got the money in the bank. I make good enough money. I'm buying within my means. They may throw their hat in the ring and be fine doing so. In fact, I mean, if that's you, it's your position. Go ahead and do it, right? I mean, I'm not going to. Who am I to tell you?
My job's not. I'm not going to talk you out of it. If you made up your mind to buy, you're buying. You may as well use me. Let me go to bat. See what I can do for you.
Exactly, but what I'm seeing is I'm not seeing that they're willing to overpay. So, they're still saying, well, okay, I'll give you the 450 that you're asking. But it's still based on an appraisal and it needs to appraise for the 450. And if it doesn't, we're going to be back to the negotiation table again. So guys, at least I hope, I mean, this is my own experience. Scott, are you seeing over value gap, appraisal gap addendums still?
No,
Yeah.
no, absolutely not. No, I
Yeah.
mean, it's gonna, because shift has happened now. I mean, like you said, occasionally if a property comes on the market priced right, like for me, I always say you got to be strategic anytime. I mean, even before the crisis, the best way to get your home sold was have the agent do a comparable market analysis. Hey, based on recent sales, this is where our value range is. I suggest you come on 3% under its estimated value. That was the strategy that we used to entice an offer and potentially the best offer. Statistically, if you do that, you're going to get the best and highest offer, the highest and best offer. There's never been a more important time than now to price right. But I think because of the euphoric recall that a lot of, I run it, I'll go into clients and be like, yeah, Scott, I'm interested in listing my house. Great. This is basically its value range. Where did you want to come on at? My neighbor just sold for 1 million. I want to sell for 1 million too. Well, when did they sell? It was like a year ago, prior to interest rate hikes. Got it. Yeah, no, we can't. I can put you on the market for 1 million, but nobody's going to race over to see the house. The only way to get people over to the house is find out who our competition is and beat them and give people a reason to come see your house. Yeah, but I have a better lot, better lighting, better flooring, better whatever. I said, it doesn't matter. If I can't get them to the house, they're never going to see it. So if you're in an accelerating market like we were, then you could come on at the upper end of its value range and still get people over to the house because we had a FOMO that we could work within. Beautiful thing, right? I mean, gosh. But now we're in a decelerating market. So do you want to come on at the top of its value range or the lower end of its value range? I'm suggesting, in fact, I don't even want your listing unless you're willing to do it, unless we're just here to waste each other's time. And then, I'm going to tell you in a week or two from now, we've got 0 people to the open house, 0 offers, and I'm suggesting a price reduction. Like if you want that relationship, then I guess, I can put you on the market. But the only way right now, there's no overpriced asking. I know somebody in the comments will be, we're still getting them out here. Yeah, if you price right, you'll get people over there competing, but you have to price right. So anybody that's getting that right now probably had a good agent that priced them right and was able to entice some offers. And once I always say the reason I like to put people priced right so I can get every available buyer in that price range over to the house, guess what happens to you and me? And that's what happened in the FOMO. When you go to an open house and there's a line out the door to see that house.
Right.
It places urge, honey, look at all these people. Tell our agent to write. That's what they do. So I have to create urgency. And I can't do that if I price you at the top of its value range. But if I price you at the lower end and I can get a few people in there, hey, honey, I see there's another couple looking at this house. That's what it takes to get anything done right now, in my opinion.
So, Scott, I want to backtrack a minute. I want to ask you something. And maybe it's not fair to ask it. And if you don't feel like answering it, no, tell me you don't feel like answering it. We came off a time, and you and I have both experienced this. We came off a time when we were meeting with our sellers, and the seller said, what do you think the house is worth? And you said what it was worth. And they said, well, I'd like to try to get a little bit more than that. I'd like to try and get a little bit higher price, right? So we were like, okay, well, I mean, sure. Why, if that's what you want to do, well, okay, we'll put it out there. You said that you could overprice the house and people would still come and get it because of the amount of FOMO and the amount of exuberance. And we saw it happen. It was headline news, right? But, the most of the buyers that were buying, they don't know how to value a property. They're buying payments, right? And they're buying just, they want it, right? And they don't even know, most of these people, what it's like to even own a home. I'm talking about the first time buyers. The home would come on the market. At what point does what is the agent's responsibility when we were, what do you think? How much do you think, the real question, I'll just get to it here. How much do you think the agent played into the market the way it ran the last 2 years? The buyer's agent, how much do you think played into the agent's responsibility or side of things?
I don't think the agent had much to do with the FOMO and the market being what it was. I think the agent somehow didn't understand that this was bubble behavior. And if they did, they were just unwilling to admit it. They just went along for the ride. This was similar, in my opinion, to hitting the lottery. And here's why. So when we got all locked down at home, yours truly included, I was sitting there and I was like, this is kind of strange. I'm locked at home. I wonder what's going to happen with the industry. And then they started making people essential. You could go to the grocery store, you could go to Costco. And then lo and behold, I got notification that we were approved with protocol to go sell homes because the government needed to keep the housing market from crashing. But the opposite occurred. Because people are locked at home, we had limited inventory. So with hand sanitizers, remote showings, one-on-one showings, things like that, we were able to go sell homes. But it was in a stifled inventory environment. So FOMO pushed everything up. So realtors, of course, anytime there's a boom in the market, if you look at past booms, new agents pile in. It's a very attractive industry to start with. Then you add the casino climate, the hitting of the lottery. See, people didn't understand what I just told you. The agent didn't understand that we were deemed essential workers to go stimulate the housing market, but we overstimulated it and we piled in a bunch of new agents and it became a casino climate and it became normalized. So I don't really think the agent necessarily is to blame. I think it's easy to blame the agent. Listen,
Well, let
I
me
say
ask
this
you
to my,
this.
I got to
Let
say
me
one
ask you
last
another
thing. This
one.
is a really funny one. People ask me this all the time. I tell them this all the time. Listen, friends, I'm a real estate agent. And I don't even like real estate agents. So I get it. Like it's hard sometimes not to blame the agent, especially if they're sugarcoating it, telling you date the rate, marry the house. And there's sales trainings that are designed to get you to buy. Designed to not get you on the sidelines and buy later and earn your, but no, they want you to see you buy now. That's what's up.
And I guess, and look, hindsight, we can all Monday morning quarterback, right? I mean, we can all sit there and, kind of look back and say, should we have done this? Should this have happened? But I think looking back, and if I were to say, the hard part about this or our responsibility is I feel like there are just there's so many agents that they just don't have the experience, and it's such a big part of important part of someone's life, buying and selling a home. And I'm not saying it's the agent's fault or it's the buyer's fault or it's like you said, it was a perfect storm. It was like a lotto, right? And but I think that we're going to learn something from this, Scott. I think I think at the end of the day, because here's the thing, and I've said this before on my channel, I've spoken with my real estate attorney, and we have somebody that has a lot of experience, attorney that has a whole lot of experience, and he deals with the real estate commission all the time. And he said that at least locally here, the commission has a lot of cases against buyer's agents from, where the buyer felt that they were misguided. So, I mean, these are just, it is what it is. And I think the biggest thing is where these buyers are waking up. And I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody. I'm in this industry. I love the industry. I try every day I can to teach and train and educate, and I'm committed to doing that and being involved. But we all make mistakes. I mean, I'm not, beyond that. But I think the biggest thing is that these buyers are getting into these houses and realizing the true cost of ownership. And I think if nothing else, an agent should be, and maybe a lot of them are doing this. But, I'm having conversations with people that are saying, I can afford the monthly payment. And I'm saying, but you're in a 700 square foot apartment. You're buying a 22 or 2,400 square foot house. Your utilities are going to be triple.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nail on the head. Just because you qualify for a payment doesn't mean that's how much you should spend, right? I mean, I think that's the challenge. And I think the agents, a lot of them definitely played a massive role. And what happened here, I'm not in love with the agent that told you this time is different. No crash risk here, just let's write the offer. I have a big problem with that agent. That agent and I will not work together. See, that's why I love where I'm at now. Because you see, my job is to protect the client. And while I have to have a good working relationship with the agents around me, because I'm a straight shooter, I will get that. And if I'm writing your offer, I'm going to tell the other agent, hey, you might not like this offer. You might not even submit this offer. And I don't mean to offend you, but this is where we're at. Would you like me to write it up? No hard feelings. And I get it, because if I have a listing and that agent comes back to me and says, I'm about to lowball you, well, go ahead, lowball me. I got it coming. Listen, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make my clients money, or at least protect their financial future. And
So
I've
to
had
represent
agents
them.
like, yeah, like that's what you need out of a real estate agent when you get representation. That's what you need. Not sugarcoating it, not telling you some scripted sales training on how to get you to the next step of the purchasing process and walk you off a cliff. Because for me, you don't get hurt in real estate when you buy at the wrong time, necessarily. You get hurt in real estate when you sell at the wrong time. So for me, what I'm doing, if you're my buyer and you're a first time buyer or any buyer, I don't even care what type of buyer, let's check the property's rent range. I want to make sure your payment is within it, because if something was to happen to you, or if you ever want to climb the property ladder, I want you to be able to put a renter in this property and have it at least be a break even, if not a positive cash flow. Can we check that? Well, nobody's ever asked us that, Scott. Yes, that would be great. How hard was that? I'm showing on my channel all the time properties. Here you go. Here's one cheaper to own than you could buy it for less than what it would cost to rent. I like that. But I see areas like Phoenix where those numbers don't line up yet. It costs you more to own than it does to rent. So you're one hiccup, one flat tire, one job loss, one layoff away from a tailspin, which those 10 million people that bought in the height of the euphoria that are going upside down right now, if that's you, you got to check out first, will my payment, is it within its rent range? That's step one. Maybe it is. Then you could be like, hey, honey, listen, I think we put a renter in this. Can I rent out part of the house? Can I rent out some rooms and supplement my income with that? Can I turn the garage into a legal ADU? Is there something I can do? Other than that, the only thing you can do is call your agent, if they're still in the business and not working at the big box store by now, and say, put me on the market, collect an offer, and take it to the bank and see if they'll accept it as a short sale. I want out. That is pretty much your only choices, in my opinion.
Melissa, let's take some questions.
We're going to first, I want to take an opportunity to dive in and just do the super chat.
Super cash, as Melissa says.
For some reason, that confused me. We got Real Estate Mindset here. Thank you so much.
Travis.
Crash Bros Unite. Hi, Travis.
Shout out,
Thank
Travis.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much.
Travis, keep it bonkers, my friend.
Absolutely.
That's
and
right.
then we've got Cameron Jenkins here. Todd, Scott, Melissa. The knockout blow to Lennar in Denver happened this week. Scott, I will be sending the footage later this week.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I love that guy. He's sent stuff in before. I've used it on the channel. Iron will continue to sharpen iron. Thank you so much.
Cameron, thank you. Thank you so much.
And then we have another one here. This one, NVSTRZ34. How on earth does this truly correct? Foreclosing so many new homeowners seems like political suicide. Plus, everyone wants to be a landlord now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk about.
Go ahead, Todd. We're both like, let me at it.
That's right. I do want to talk about Open Door a little bit, because you talk about the landlords, or corporate America buying houses. Boy, did they get spanked so far. Open Door. I mean, look, flipping houses not an easy racket, man. It's it's quite complicated. It's a lot to it. You start into something and you can do a 300-point inspection all you want. I mean, and there's a lot of these iBuyers, they buy these houses and they want to jump in the market, and, they raise money and all this stuff to, I'm not a financial advisor, know nothing about it. But I do know that their stock is, and and they're selling houses for losses, and Open Door is who I'm talking about here. And the thing is that they, just like many investors, they jumped into the market thinking that they could capitalize on America's housing, the roof over our heads, and turn that into this money-making machine. And it is a legitimate business, guys. I'm not saying that renovating houses that are dire straits of renovation or being torn down, there's a market for that. There's a place for that. I've done it countless times. And but what you don't understand, especially these big investors that are jumping in, or even the new investors, small investors that have never done it before, is that when you start disassembling things, something is always more than what you expect. And so it doesn't surprise me when we see a home flipper like Open Door, that was buying and renovating houses to sell for profit. It doesn't surprise me that they've had massive losses. But anyway, we're going to talk about that a little bit. But Melissa,
let me chime in, because this guy super chatted, so he deserves full participation in his question. And I think part of this, if I'm reading it correctly, he's like, listen, he's like, how could we have a foreclosure crisis? It'll be political suicide, for people in office. If it would, they're trying to avoid that, and that's why I think it's really hard to trust the people in office right now, because there's political gain, there's financial gain from a lot of these big companies that are in their pockets. So I think one of the things that we could see, like in the last bubble, there was mortgage forbearance. No, we had mortgage. It was loan modifications. I'm sorry, loan modifications, where you could have you could reduce your payment. You couldn't have it you had to make a payment, but you could have it reduced. So I think he's saying, like, wouldn't the government come in and provide another bailout if a foreclosure crisis started to sweep? Yeah, they'll try something. It might be just loan modifications again to try. But you see, the thing is, the challenge with that one, my friend. Well, okay, so from a fundamental standpoint, anytime the housing market exhibits bubble behavior, they've crashed. So we have that to contend with. Anytime the housing market's crashed, foreclosures have been produced. So we have that to contend with. So then it becomes the percentage of likelihood. Can they stop this one? They can't, because their hands are tied, because during stimulus, we threw everything in the kitchen sink at this one. There's no more that we can do without hyperinflation. It's just squash it. It's a two-headed monster. We don't know how to put it back in the cage. So with that being said, last but not least, my friend, is that there's gonna be foreclosures. There's no avoiding that. And right now, what we're attacking to control inflation through interest rate hikes, what are we really targeting? Jobs. Which jobs are being affected? White collar wage earners. Who buys houses? White collar wage earners. Those are all the news that we're seeing. Amazon, Walmart, everybody, Wells Fargo, you name it. All these high flying white collar wage earners are getting sent home, and they bought houses. So if you don't have the ability to make a payment, we're not going to have loan forgiveness. It's not going to happen. And if it did, we're going to have a much bigger problem, basically out there ready to surface. So I think that's kind of his question. Isn't this because the people in office, aren't they going to help us avoid a foreclosure crisis, because they need, because it would be political suicide if they don't? Well, in the Obama era, we had foreclosure crisis. We got Biden now. I don't think he can stop this one. I just don't think he's capable. I don't think anybody's capable of it, really. I mean, like, for the reasons I just mentioned.
Scott, and this is a great question, right? And but I think something that's uniquely different here, and we have spoken about how this could never be like '08. Oh, it's different. Oh, it's so different. The people can afford, we had the liar loans. We had the no doc loans. Okay. Here's what I have to say to all that. We have more debt now than we had back then. Okay. I'm not just talking about mortgages, right? we were selling cars, not me, not you, but the car industry was selling cars for $10,000 over list price. They were taking the average, they were stretching people to 7-year auto loans. We're talking about something that depreciates thousands of dollars when you put the tag on it and drive it off the road. And now we're sticking these people in these cars. Look, I'm telling you, I've been affected by it. I know our employees have been affected by it. I know friends that have been affected by it. That car that they overpaid for has a recall on a part and is broke down and has been at the dealership for 4 months trying to get fixed, right? Because you can't even get the parts, right? So you want to talk about compounding these issues. If you want to say, well, this isn't like '08, this was nowhere near. We got more equity in houses than we ever have, okay? How long will it take? We watched what happened in the announcement of the pandemic, and in 2 weeks, the shelves were empty in the grocery stores, right? We're not far from it, guys. I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to sound any more of an alarm than what we should be talking about in the first place. And that's the fact that we are as vulnerable as we were in '08 as we ever have been. And, and we're in a situation right now where we're talking about the largest amount of consumer debt, the least amount of money in the savings accounts, right? We're looking at people trying to buy houses with $5,000 in their bank account. They don't have any money to fix anything. And now we're looking at people with credit card debt that are paying 30%, 29.99%, annual percentage rate. How long does that take to pay? I had a guy ask me today, what's the equation of how much you actually pay for a home with a mortgage? Is it double, or how about triple? How about you spend $400,000 for a house, and if you keep it until 30 years are up, you pay $1.2 million for it? How's that sound for a good deal? Right? So, we have to be real here, guys. We have to talk about, we are in a situation. How do we correct it? This is a great question. Above my pay grade, but like we're here to say, when we're quickly saying that, this can't change, or we can't have another '08 or anything like that, this far extends that. I'm watching and seeing articles about Goldman Sachs, right? Chase, Wells Fargo. We're talking about these banks have given more debt. They are leveraged to the max, right? We've printed more money than we have in 2.5 years than we have in 200 years, right? So, what's going to happen? Will we come out with a loan program? You know what? There were winners and losers in the '08 crisis, right? There were big losses by, massive corporations. Then there were companies that were bailed out that we just couldn't believe, or we knew why they were bailed out, right? But we, talk about political, suicide here on that. We knew that there were, companies that could not fail, right? And then we watched General Motors, a household name, go down the tubes, right? And how many people were invested in that company that lost, their money? So, it's just one of those things. But we'll continue with the questions. We obviously, guys, is a passionate thing, right? No one knows the answer, but I don't think we can be ignorant and turn our nose up and say this could never be like '08.
A lot of the viewers have questions about, what if they did buy at the peak, at the top? And we've got Gregory here. Unfortunately, what recourse does a recent buyer have? You are trapped. But presumably, if you were able to qualify and afford at the rate and price that was purchased, then you need to continue.
Scott, I'll let you answer this. And you kind of alluded to it. Some of the options that are out there for buyers that can't afford it if their home is underwater, if they did not put a lot of money down, because a lot of people did. They put a lot of cash down. There was, especially among the first-time buyers, there was a large percentage, and I forget of what it was, but maybe it was like 40 or 45% of the buyers in the last 2.5 years, maybe, or certainly, if not the last 6 months, the preceding, or the 2 years before that, a lot of the buyers had gift money from their parents. And so, and some of those put down pretty hefty down payments, and you will probably be okay. That doesn't mean that you're not losing money if you have to sell. But Scott, you had said something about, a short sale. Maybe you can kind of explain what that means, and, and talk about, have you heard of any programs or how banks are handling that type of thing nowadays? We are seeing some short sales hit the market, by the way.
Yeah, tax sales too. So, so when it comes, this is insane. This is like living in the twilight zone. Okay, so what's going to happen now? Let's say you bought in the peak, in the height, during the euphoria, during the crisis, and your house now is reverse course. It's no longer worth what you paid, and for a lot of people, like our commenter or subscriber Gregory was saying, for a lot of people, if they can afford the payment, they're like, okay, whatever, it's just our house, we love it, so whatever. Real estate cycles, it'll come back. I mean, that's typically, and it will maybe eventually. Like, I don't know, that this depends on how big this downturn is. The last '08 downturn, it took a good 10 years or so to maybe see your property climb back out and be worth what you paid. But if you can still afford your payment and you qualify and you got cash reserves, I don't really like to see when people so in order to, let's say you bought at the height, just because you're like, as an investor, I could go buy a property and I mortgaged it and say, well, it's upside down now, bank, so I don't want it, I want out, let me out. I'm going to sell it, bring you the option. No, you have to have a hardship. You have to prove hardship. So if your wife was laid off, or you were laid off, or you had a medical bill, you got to have some proof that you're going through a financial hardship. And then the bank's still going to try to manipulate it, for lack of a better choice of words, and get you to stick with the mortgage. They're going to try to get you to take all the lumps on this deal. They're going to try to avoid it. So in the last bubble, a lot of times what people would do would be like, I have a hardship, here it is in writing. I have an agent. The agent contacts the bank and lets them know they have it listed. They send the bank the comps. This is how we came up with this price that we've got it priced at based on the comps, and the bank will agree to a short sale. Now, for a lot of times, people would just be like, listen, because the banks would, they would just like, take the short sale and the offer, or I'm leaving the keys under the mat, and you guys can come deal with this in 6, 9 months, a year from now, when the market's even further down and the bank's in bigger trouble. So like, fine, we'll let you out of this with a short sale. But you have to answer your question. Just because you buy it in the top of the bubble and your house is no longer worth what you paid doesn't mean you can just put it on the market as a short sale. You have to have a financial hardship, and you have to be able to prove that financial hardship, or at least you got to put it in writing, and basically see if they'll accept it due to a financial hardship. So that's how short sales work.
Yeah, and neither one of us are accountants, but I know, there were a lot of people didn't realize that there were some financial tax implications for people that were, taking these losses. They were needing to pay taxes on the loss that they were claiming.
So yeah, it has a lot of negative repercussions. I mean, it just comes down to, see, I don't want to see anybody house poor. Like, if you're like, what I remember, if you start like dipping into your savings account to make your house payment, and you're supplementing your income with savings and borrowing from mom and dad to keep up with hey, mom and dad, I can't keep up with the house payment. Oh, we'll help. No, just write the hardship letter, go to the bank, get it listed, and see if you can get out. But it's, every situation will be different. That's why, as an agent, I always tell my subscribers anytime they reach out, I want to talk to you personally. I need to get to know you. I need to understand exactly what's going on here, because this isn't a one size fits all. Every specific person's different. Everything's different. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're, seeing and what we're facing for sure.
Yeah, great point. And then there's always, and I have a friend of mine, he's a real estate broker, and, he's been doing a lot of research and schooling into this subject too, and and I'm not an attorney, but there is a due on sale clause in your mortgage that if you convey that deed to somebody else, your balance is technically due. But there are a lot of people that believe that there will be a lot of subject to sales, meaning that somebody assumes, or they don't assume it, but they continue to make your mortgage payment while they move into your house and you sign over ownership to them. And then you have to trust, you put a lot of dependence and trust that they're actually going to, pay your payments on time so your credit's not destroyed if it isn't already. And, so that may be, I'm not suggesting that, but you may find that there are going to be a lot of people that will be there to try and help you through that process. Doesn't put you in a very good position either way. But like Scott was saying, I mean, the thing is that what we see is the real live, life story behind all of this. I mean, I can't tell you going through, the 2008 crisis, how many people, didn't have furniture in their house. They bought new houses. They couldn't afford to put a deck. I mean, they're trying to sell the house 10 years later. It was all they could do to try and scrape, or they lost it. And it was all they could try and do. And, they still have the gate that goes across the sliding glass door off of the dining room or the kitchen, where they could never afford to even build a deck. And, and then empty rooms, the furniture. Well, did you not have furniture, or did you sell your furniture because you're moving? And, how many people say we couldn't afford furniture? So these rooms were basically, empty rooms for the last 10 years. I guess that's what what we're trying to say is, where we need to make sure that we're careful, especially now. If you didn't realize it and you have buddies that bought houses, maybe they'll tell you how they feel about ownership, and maybe it's the best thing in the world, but that doesn't mean that that's right for you. And I think that's the biggest thing that we've seen was the amount of, the FOMO of the buyers, because they just felt that they were inadequate because they weren't buying. They felt like they were throwing their money away because that's what they're hearing from their friends and their family a lot of times. You're throwing your money away renting. Let me tell you something. If you're listening to this and you're borderline whether you should be buying a house right now and you're limited on cash and you're feeling the pressure of renting, that is nothing like the pressure of owning and not being able to afford to fix the house or make your payments. Okay. That is nothing compared to that type of pressure. Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing, because you just sparked one for me, and I'll make it short, but there's only one time in history where renters are better than owners, at least recent owners, is in a crash environment. I mean, that makes sense, right? So if you're renting right now, I mean, time's on your side, right? Now, a lot of people, I was talking to one of her subscribers, Tina from Vegas, single mom, couple kids, lease is up in July. She's like, should I start working with an agent now? I really want to buy foreclosures. And I'm like, well, listen, you guys are in trouble out there. Like, I'll give you that. But you're going to probably be another year before a foreclosure crisis if and when it comes. And the main thing is, Tina, in Las Vegas, is it's not necessarily if it's foreclosed on or not, because that's a different animal as well, but it's really examining cost to own. Is it cheaper to own that house than it is to rent? Well, then maybe, you pull the trigger and buy a home. You examine its rent range. So you set yourself up for success later. So if and when you're ready, you plop a renter into that one, you call Scott Walters and say, hey, can we see if another property pencils out? I want to do another one of those. And that's where the agent putting your needs before their own, protecting your interest to earn your business later. Hopefully he's going to have the wherewithal, the forward thinking, critical thinking to utilize that type of behavior to protect his clients, make sure their payments under its rent range so they can get their business again later and build investors in wealth and real estate. Millionaires, 90% made their money in real estate. It wasn't by owning their house. It's by owning other people's houses. And it starts with one property, your first. Now, second, Todd, iBuyer programs. I mean, they only survive in a euphoria bubble environment. That's why they are folding up left and right and on the verge of bankruptcy. iBuyers only work. Flippers only work. Mom and pop flipper or an iBuyer open door. only work in a bubble environment. And that's why we're seeing them now fail, because the bubble has done what? Popped. Do you need more evidence it's popped? Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
You're right. Well, that's good advice, Scott.
And I do want to ask you guys this question, because Saul has written this twice, which to me, it's very important to Saul that, you answer it. What about the people that bought high but also sold high? How does all this affect them if they put all of their equity into the new purchase?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, a lot of people made money in this last, 2 years in this runaway train. I mean, there was more generational wealth, I think, that transferred, and more people that sold their houses that they didn't fix anything. They didn't, nothing was, updated or upgraded. And I mean, probably one of the only times, I don't know, probably in the remaining career that I have, that I'll ever see, I hope that I ever see, where people were just buying houses that, without inspections. And so if you think about it, why wasn't it a great time to sell? I mean, you bought a house, 20 years ago, you had tons of equity, and, you didn't have to fix anything. Hey, it was upgraded. What do you think I can get for my house? Well, you can get whatever you want for the house. Do I need to fix this? Do I need to fix that? No, you're not even going to need to do an inspection. These people are just going to buy the house as it is, because that's what they do now, right? So I think that, a lot of these people, they did this, and they sold their houses and they profited high. I mean, look, you're entitled to do that. Again, I'm not an accountant, but, I mean, it's been no secret that in our primary residence, as a single filing individual, you can write off, or you can get up to $250,000, tax free, or as a married couple, you can get $500,000, right, of profit in your house, tax free. I mean, there's been, some talk of wanting to kind of take that away, maybe, or something. I don't know. But what I'm saying here is that, these are big boys and girls that have owned houses before. So when I'm addressing a lot of the, trying to warn the consumers that are in this situation today, or, are trying to buy a house and can't, these are people that have never bought real estate before. So I don't feel as sorry for, somebody that has bought a house before and sold a house, and now they're in a situation, as I do these people that have never experienced this and completely trusted a professional to give them advice, not to represent them, which we're licensed to do, to take care of them, to educate them, to make certain that they don't make the mistakes. And if they do, that we hadn't said, hey, I told you this, right? I tried telling you this, but you did it anyway. But what can I do? But, so what are these people that are doing, that are in the situation where they sold their house, they made a bunch of money and didn't fix anything, and they bought something and now they're going to lose the equity on their house? I would say they've been there before, so they're going to deal with it, right? And these are the people that probably can afford to take the hit. The first-time buyers that bought with 3.5% down, didn't have $5,000 left over in their bank account. Their debt to income ratio was borderline. So they paid off a couple credit cards just temporarily, suffered, didn't buy anything so that they could get their credit score up so they could afford, or their debt to income ratio down. But then life has caused it to just get charged right back up again because they didn't shred the credit cards. These are the people that I think are going to have the biggest, I guess, turbulence to get through should they experience any kind of a financial downturn. Scott, was that loaded?
I'm trying to wrap my head around all that, Todd. No, I mean, that's good stuff. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, we're all just trying to keep up at this point. But Yeah, I run into that a lot. Like I think I started the show with, I talk to people. I'm like, well, if you sell now at the top of the market just to go rebuy at the top of the market, are we really winning here? And so it just really depends. It depends how much equity's in the house, how much. I don't know. Like I said, it's really tricky. I think for a lot of us, we want to blame the agent, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately your decision. Like your decision. Hopefully, you find an agent that's really earned your trust and delivered for you and protected you because hopefully, that's like the guy I learned from was Animal, over $1 billion in personal sales. And when I went to work for him, I was instantly on an episode of $1 Million Listing. I was like a deer in the headlights, but I had to suit up and show up and act the part. I learned. I had to put my feet to the fire. I went out there and handled it. But he made a lot of his money off of repeat business. Happy customers are repeat customers, Scott. And so, it's really important. Like, I would rather sit you on the sidelines, check, see if stuff pencils out. Don't, do my best to just get you protect you the best I can. Am I perfect? No. Is anybody perfect? No. I can't guarantee I'm going to do this perfectly. I've made tons of mistakes. Warren Buffett's made tons of mistakes. We make mistakes. Welcome to the real world. Sometimes we have to live with those mistakes. And I think that's what happens. Like for me, I don't regret what I went through in 2008. And I didn't even buy at the top. I bought my house for 25% lower than its original list price. I thought I was pretty smart. They had another 20, almost 25% coming. I caught a falling knife, and I didn't check its rent range. So I didn't have any option I had to weather that storm. And that was not fun. It's just not fun doing that. But I don't regret it now because what I've learned, I can pass on to you and help you from making that mistake. So I don't regret it anymore. But if I was to go do it again in this bubble, what would that be the definition of? Insanity. Doing the same thing over, expecting a different result. So I'm like, I think I'll sit this one out. In fact, guess what, you guys? I'm not camera shy, and I'm a real estate agent. Let's start, as my teenage kids will say, spitting facts. Let's turn on this camera and give them some straight talk. And that was during the euphoria, before interest rate hikes. Oh, pour into the market, buy the dip, buy my course, do this, you'll win. Financial cliff now. So now we're here on, clean up aisle 5, Todd and I, trying to protect people and see what we can do for the ones that are going to walk through that mess that we witnessed in '08 and try to keep people from walking through it, moving forward. But more importantly, who wants to make money? Who wants to buy smart? Because when there's blood in the streets, that's the buy alert. And it's going to be fear and panic. Reverse FOMO is about what you're going to witness next. Reverse FOMO. People that can buy won't. They'll be paralyzed with fear because they didn't have anybody centered and surrounded letting them know. We're just going to check a couple things. Does it pencil out? Don't fall in love with the property. Test it with an offer. Move away from the property if it doesn't stick. That's it.
You deal with that, and this is a good question for you, Scott. And I know we have tons of questions here, and we want to get to them as many as we can. And it's probably hundreds of comments.
Oh, it's so much.
Yeah, and we'll continue, and we'll do a follow-up video, Melissa and I, picking out some of your comments. We've been doing that the last couple of weeks, and just trying to answer some more questions because we know. Look, this show is for you guys, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, we appreciate everybody's questions for sure.
Yeah. So, but the question I have for you, Scott, because this came up today, and I know you've heard this before, and I had an agent that called another agent about an offer that a buyer client wanted to make on the property. And by the way, this buyer client's a great, just a dedicated listener to us. In fact, and very educated to the market, doesn't just listen to our channel. And guys, and I think the nice thing about today versus 15 years ago is that we do have YouTube, and and so far I don't know too many real estate channels that are being censored out of, so our messages are getting through. But the important thing is that you do have other sources, sort of like continual sources, that you don't have to wait for the news that come on and then kind of get like some kind of like what is that saying, or what does that mean? And so you do get an opportunity for real agents on the street to kind of tell you what they're seeing and hearing and feeling and things like that. But this is why it's so important that we know your thoughts too, and that's why we love the comments and the questions. But Scott, you had said something about, somebody making a lowball offer. Maybe it's not a lowball offer. Maybe it's where it should be. And I think a lot of the buyers are wising up. They're looking back at the, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, at what the prices were before the freight train took off, right? And they're saying, well, wait a minute, they just bought this house for X amount of dollars. And, I don't, I'm looking at other comps in the neighborhood and it doesn't justify this all out, just price that it's listed at, but it went quickly under contract. And, and then it went back on the market. And then you talk to the agent and you say, okay, so my agent's talking to the agent saying, my client just wants to, before we write it up, my client just wants to put an offer out and, not in writing, just verbalize what the offer would be. And if it's okay with your seller, then we'll go ahead and we'll write it up. And, number one, how many times have you heard an agent, when you've asked that question, and maybe you haven't, but how many times have you quickly heard the agent say, oh, don't waste your time?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time. I mean, and I get it. A lot of times we can't just write a lowball offer, especially. So here's how it typically works. So let's say there's a listing and you're interested, and you're like, hey, Scott, this one just popped up. I'd like to write an offer. They're priced at $250,000. I like to write on the $200,000 offer. So well, let me call over there. This pretty new listing. If they were stuck on the market for a year showing price reductions, maybe your $200,000 offer we might be able to do this. But it's a newer listing. Let me call. Hey guys, what's happening? Scott Walters, I got a client that's interested in your house. Well, what can you tell me about it? I see it's a fairly new listing. Yeah, Scott, we appreciate your call. Yeah, so far we've got great turnout at our open house. We've already got 2 offers on the table, and somebody else says they're ready to write. And so I go back to my client. They got 2 offers, and they're getting a lot of interest in this house. So because I might tell the other side, okay, cool, because we were thinking can you tell me what those offers were? Well, I can't tell you exact numbers, Scott, but it's asking price, or it's above asking price, or it's around asking price. It's almost asking price. Okay, great. Thank you for that information. And I go back to my buyer and say, we ain't writing a $200,000 offer on this one. That's why I was saying, don't fall in love with the house, because we might not be able to make our offer stick. Now, if you love the house and you got an open checkbook and you're a FOMO buyer, well, let's go get into a bidding war. But my job is to help you not be that guy, clearly. So no, I mean, there's a lot of times where you just don't bother writing the offer because you already get a temperature check from the selling side that there's no reason to.
But what if the flip side of it? What if the agent doesn't have any offers? What if you can see that there hasn't been any showings on it? And, the list price is $335,000. And your client says, call them up and tell them I'll give them 300. And you call the agent up and you say, hey, my client would like to give a verbal offer of 300,000. And the agent says, they'll never take that. Don't waste your time. Is that right of the listing agent? Or what is your opinion of that agent making the decision for their seller?
Yeah, no, that's not good. I mean, typically what I say is write the offer. Send it over, just write the offer. I'm not going to say don't bother. We're already getting that's what we dealt with a lot of. Oh yeah, don't even bother sending that offer. My client won't even look at it. Me, I'm going to send your offers, write it up, send it over. I deserve it. I'm not going to act all high and mighty. Oh, I'm hot shot Scott Walters. Don't even bother writing that offer because we're way past that. No, write the offer. Write the offer. And then I'll let them know, hey, listen, our offer got accepted. We want to thank you for submitting yours, whatever.
But one step, what if your buyer doesn't want to write the offer? They want to give the seller a verbal offer.
Oh.
And the listing agent says, don't bother. Or they'll never take that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I completely. You saying should I verbally make an offer without it being in writing?
No, because here's what, and I'll kind of clarify because this has always been my take on it. Transactions happen between the buyers and the sellers, right? And I get a lot of times where the agent will say, well, I won't do that, or I'm not even going to present that, or they'll never take that. And then I have to push back a little bit and say, well, do me a favor and ask them and then get back to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, always ask. Hey, listen, we're thinking about writing an offer. We're going to send this over. Yeah.
Or my client wants a verbal. My client wants to give a verbal. And look, we're a statutory state. Contracts are only in writing. It doesn't mean that they're going to take it when we present it, but will they accept the $300,000?
Oh yeah,
The
absolutely.
agent. And so what I do, and guys, this is just something to kind of, if you tell your agent, you want them to communicate that with the seller, and the agent says, I'm not going to present that unless it's in writing, or I'm not going to do that. I don't know what your state law is, but you're the buyer, right? What I simply say is, do me a favor, just go ahead and send me an email stating that you're not going to submit my client's verbal offer to your client so that I can satisfy my buyer with your answer, right? So my point here is, guys, is that, however we come to that, the bottom line is, if you're the buyer and you want to offer something on a house, offer it. If you don't have an agent that wants to write that offer or give that offer, then, that's another story. But, don't be afraid. You guys are doing your due diligence right now. You're getting good at it. Don't be afraid to stick to your guns and establish your price, I guess, is all I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's take another couple questions before we jump off of here.
Yep. I just wanted to thank Jeff M. for giving us what's going on where he's living here in St. Louis, Missouri. Bidding wars are worse than 2020, 2021. Went to an open house Sunday and the road was shut down. Line to get in, 30 offers in 48 hours, 10 to 20% over asking. It's chaos here. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Jeff, we appreciate it.
Well, yeah, I mean, their area didn't get super euphoric. And so if you price right, you could probably solicit that kind of offer. That's why I started the show. If you price right, you could still stimulate some bidding wars. But the realities are those are becoming more few and far between. So, Jeff, there's a good chance at some point that's going to probably subside if I was a betting man, because the housing market's clearly going down. But yeah, I just helped somebody buy in St. Louis area, and I was really surprised because the affordability was still really good there. It never got too euphoric. So I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. I don't know about 30 offers in 48 hours. I mean, they would have had to have priced. One of the strategies when, especially even in the bubble, let's say I had a house that clearly was $1 million home, but I priced it for $500,000. Well, it got bid up over $1 million. Every time. And we knew when we saw the listing, right, this agent is creating FOMO. They're going to get everybody over to in town over to this house.
It's an auction, right?
Yeah.
At that point,
see how much this thing's worth.
Most auctions, guys, when you go to an auction, most of the time you're overpaying at an auction. And I went to builder auctions up until probably, I was building houses, renovating houses. I used to buy tractor trailer loads of building materials from building auctions. And, and basically, I would buy doors for $5 an interior door, right? Perfectly good doors. Then and this was through the crash time of 2008. And then all of a sudden you get into a situation where you're going to these auctions and you have, the homeowners there bidding the door up to $260 when you could buy it at Home Depot for $240. You're going, wait a minute, this guy, something's not right here, right? And what happens is you want to get the public involved in an auction, a bidding process, and you can almost guarantee you're going to get over asking price or over value for that product, right? Happens time and time again. So there are agents out there that that price these houses right if their clients rely on their expertise. Now I'll give you the flip side of that, because like Scott perfectly said, you want to overprice your house, I mean, you're dead in the water, right? So basically, I went on. I've got a listing coming on. I had someone reached out, wants to sell their house, in the general area, and I went and looked at the house and gave them a price of the house. And they came back and said, well, we'd love to list the house, but we want to list it for 100,000 more than what you had suggested. I mean, come on. That's the exact opposite of what we're talking about here, right? I'm not going to come in $100,000 less unless I tell you that that's the strategy we're using, right? I'm going to try and come in with what I think is going to drive that multiple offer still situation to where we can get the maximum market value. But if we're going to be ridiculous about it, you're going to be really in trouble in this market, because what happens now is, as soon as these buyers get a sniff of the fact that that house has been sitting on the market for 30 days or 45 days, you're in big trouble now, because you may as well just take it off the market and wait it out, because it's at that point, it could be.
Yeah, that's where price strategy is critical, but it never more critical than right now. So like what Todd was saying, typically what's happened, let's say Todd and I both get invited over to the same house to go on a listing appointment and give a listing presentation, and you're interviewing Todd as a potential represent you, and you're interviewing me. That's how this works typically, unless your neighbor's like, I used Todd, I loved him, he was great, you call Todd, he's your guy. But a lot of times we might have a couple agents come over and interview, which you should do. So Todd goes on the interview, and they're like, yeah, Todd, this my house, I'd like to put it on for 1.1. And Todd's like, yeah, I ran the comps. It's, it really came out more. And, he'd be polite. He wouldn't be a tough guy about it. He would say, yeah, 1.1. Yeah, it's a great house. I ran the comps. Here they are. I've got them all printed out for you to review. It says you're worth like 900, maybe $1 million. Yeah, but my neighbor, Todd, and Scott's coming next. And he said he'd put me on for 1.1. So then Todd might say, you know what? Give me the listing. I'll put you on for 1.1. But if I don't get any offers, we're going to have to start talking about getting aggressive and doing price reductions. Are you okay with that? Yeah, that's fine. So that's typically a scenario Todd and I will find ourselves in. If we want to obtain the listing, we might not go in there and be like I can talk tough on my channel all the time. Like, if you don't want to see the light, I don't want your listing. And that's kind of true. Like, I would prefer not to sour a relationship. I'd rather under promise and over deliver. So if I got to try to go chase a number that's unrealistic, I'd prefer just not to take the listing. But of course, I want your business. It's a really tricky dynamic, right? In that respect. So, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing out there. Agents, they're hungry for listings. I'll take the listing. I'll put it on at 1.1. I think I can get it. I got this great marketing guy. I got some idea. I think I can get it. I mean, that's what we're seeing out there.
Perfectly said, my friend. Yeah, I mean, that's how it happens out there, and that's what we go through. And and it is tough, because the situation is, for the agent that takes it and with the expectation that they're just going to have that price conversation in a week or 2 weeks, they're really doing the seller a disservice, because at that point, once the arrow starts going down, it usually continues to go down. If we price it right, and you have a lot of trust and confidence in the agent, and it's priced right, you don't want to obviously give it away, but it's priced right. The market's going to speak. Usually, if you can get that excitement going, like Scott said, if you can strategize it even today, get that open house where people are rubbing elbows. And that's why I do 2-hour open houses. People are like, well, why don't you do a 3-hour open house? Well, wait a minute. I don't want to stretch it out. I want to get more people in. I want people to see people in these open houses. And if I can do that as a listing agent, and I can drive at more of a launch to where I get people in there, I can play off that euphoria. Now, I mean, look, that's the flip side of it, right? If I'm representing you as a seller, right? That's what I want to do, is I want to play off that euphoria. I don't want people walking through there going, this house is over. Good luck getting this house. Yeah, they can have it at this price.
And it's not even necessarily that we want to create FOMO, but we want the house to sell itself. We're just expensive tour guides when it comes down at the end of the day. Is the house needs to sell itself. So if I have an empty open house and it's a ghost town,
That's right.
it's really hard to make that house sell. I need at least a few people in this thing. So if you're it really comes down to this at the end of the day, and we can start to hopefully wrap this one up, is if you're in a declining market, the only way to get anybody over to your listing is I repeat, do not come on at the top of its price range. Do not. You got to be at its mid-level or its lower level. In fact, I would prefer to get even in front of that, because you're shooting a moving target right now, and your target is not going this way. It's going this way. So like Todd said, that's the number one thing right now, is to get in front of this. But people are they're unwilling to accept reality. They're chasing the market. They're showing days on market. They're showing the kiss of death in real estate. If I'm working for you, they're stuck on the market. They're showing price reductions. They haven't pulled the listing. Let's test it with an offer. Oh, you don't like our offer? No problem. We got 10 more on the street. I'm going to go test a few more. You guys, good luck. Hey, we want to can you get your buyer back here? They said no, my buyer doesn't like your house anymore. That's where we're at now. And we're being brutally honest.
Where are they now? Where are the 9 buyers that, didn't get your house and now you're back on the market again? All right, let's take some more questions. I know we want to, Scott, you're still early, man. I mean, you're in California, buddy. 6:30 there. And you're probably, this is like a normal day of business, man. I've been sitting at a computer.
I love this stuff. I love it. But I do have about 10 more minutes if you guys can work with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's hit some questions. Guys, and if you like what you're hearing here, man, you can let us know by hitting the thumbs up. Let Scott and I know, Melissa. We're dedicated to bringing you the best. So the most up-to-date, from the heart, professional advice that we possibly can give you. And we love you for joining in. And looks like about 760 people on with us live right now. We appreciate your time here on a Tuesday evening. And so let's go ahead and answer a couple more questions.
We got TT Designs. You think this will be a slow bleed, or there will be some major breaking point that breaks the gates open? For example, Open Door goes bankrupt and unloads their inventory.
Yeah, it could be one. Nothing would shock me at this point. It's, in all intents and purposes, we're already in a flash crash. And the reason is this. In the 2008 reverse course, it took about a year to do what we're already achieving now in a much shorter period of time. But we are one news event away, because contagion in this bubble is going to be a bigger component, because we're much more digitally. We're all zombies in our phones, right? And the last bubble, we had devices, but grandmas and toddlers weren't on their phone. So good news travels fast, bad news travels faster. A lot of people might accuse us, well, you guys are creating crash videos. No, we're not. We're just being a level-headed realist, letting you know anytime the markets exhibit bubble behavior, they crash. So buckle up and strap in. Don't rule it out. Anybody ruling it out, you might want to be careful of them. That's what we're saying. So to your question, is this going to be a slow bleed or a flash crash? Well, I believe we're already in a flash crash. I just think some markets haven't got to experience that. Yeah, but we're the tail end of a lockdown, tail end of a crisis, tail end of a stimulus era, and the front end of a recession. So it now becomes correction, recession, or depression, 3 levels of an economic downturn. We're in the correction phase now. I think we could all agree this is a correction phase. As we see now, national averages start to reduce. Some areas getting hit quite spectacular. Insanity. So he's right. Open Door goes out of business, announced bankruptcy. Bad. That's not going to help our housing market, clearly. But even if we keep going with what we're contending with currently, runaway inflation, the U.S. savings rate at an all-time low, layoffs spiking, even if we contend, that's a scratch on the surface. If shadow inventory, builders building houses, don't know how to get them sold, doing rate buy downs and upgrades, see if they can entice it off, that's not good. But even if we just keep going with what we're contending with, this thing ain't stopping. It ain't stopping yet. I don't think it's. I think we're just getting started. And I hate to say it. It pains me to say that because I don't want to live through this either. I don't want to live in a depression era. Kidding me? No. So my job is at least to be awake in case it comes. I'm not a deer in the headlight full of panic and fear because I halfway expected it and talked about it in a way that made sense. So I was not only survived, thrived in it, right? It's the first thing to do, insulate yourself, make sure you're good. Your basic needs are met. Now, how much funds do I have I can allocate to go invest? Should I grab Todd and Melissa, maybe pool 3 ways and go grab a few prop? Maybe. But to our guy, what's it, TJ Designs?
TT Designs, yes.
TT Designs. Thank you, sir. TT Designs. Yeah, I mean, it could be just a slow, like what we're currently dealing with now, which isn't that slow. If we're comparing it to previous bubbles, it's actually crashing quicker, or I shouldn't say crash, it's correcting quicker in the correction stage. But if Open Door was to pull the plug tomorrow, announce bankruptcy, and everybody's gone, and properties are on the auction block, that could put a little fuel on the correction fire for sure. And I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation. Would it surprise you if Open Door announced they're going bankrupt tomorrow and liquidating properties? Would it surprise you, Todd?
No,
Wouldn't surprise me.
No, I think that, and we're seeing, I mean, I know in Northern Virginia, they have a bunch of properties and I have a client that moved to Virginia that has been looking at some Open Door inventory. And, the thing is that a lot of the inventory from these flippers, it's not as over the top as a lot of the people that have lived in the houses that have, invested and renovated and the niceties. And a lot of these existing homes, they're a lot nicer than these houses that you're seeing a lot of these iBuyers flip. So buyers are looking at it saying, well, this isn't as nice even as the house that just recently sold for more money. So I think, buyers are definitely looking a lot more towards the value now. I think that the price of what they need to spend now with higher mortgages is making them more aware. But I think that what we're going to see is that, personally, I think we're going to see a longer sales process before we get to, major price reductions, because I think there are a lot of sellers right now that maybe want to sell, but don't know where they would go because they're going to be paying, more money for less house. So I think that, as a result of America refinancing for less than 4%, it's going to put us in a sort of like a stagflation type of environment to where, the prices are going to stay still higher than what people can afford. And we're just not going to see the sales happen is what I kind of predict for a period of time. I do think we're going to see some price correction. I'd said from the beginning, I think 10% from peak to trough. Certain markets are crashing more than that now. When I say that, I'm really talking about my local market, which is the DMV or the Mid-Atlantic region. And we've got a lot of, stable employment, government. The money always seems to flow in Washington, D.C. So we've got a lot of top jobs. We have insurance employers here. It's another big employer here in Maryland. Not saying that we won't come down, but I think a lot of what we're going to see is just prices flatten out like we saw in the 80s, to where, we saw the high interest rates. I don't think we're done there. I think Jay Powell, when they meet in March, is going to, I think we're going to be looking at another 0.5 point, which is major. It's significant, right? Considering we've seen some of the fastest rate hikes in the history of our debt, society of debt. So, this is going to affect everybody's affordability, or the buyers, the main buyers, which have been millennials or first-time buyers, have been averaging 30 to 35, almost 40% in, a few years ago of the buyers in the market of houses are first-time or millennial buyers, right? they're the ones that are being impacted the greatest right now. In fact, millions of them are moving back home because they can't even afford their rent.
Since we were just talking about rates, Todd, how about we just address this one? Orlando Rodriguez, thank you so much for your question. Today, we are at 6.85% interest rate. I know we don't have a crystal ball, but what's your best guess for interest rates by year's end?
Well, that's a great one right there. And, the interest rate isn't as important. See, what's going to happen now is interest rates are going to affect prices. And like Todd was saying, when he was just speaking, all areas are going to behave differently. Some are going to be a little better insulated. We know there's a lot of areas in the country, primarily the East Coast and the Midwest. The West Coast is heating up. We have some hot spots around there, but we are at the front end of this. Now, something could happen tomorrow. Political event, food shortage, war. There's a lot of stuff on the table right now that really we could probably talk about and turn this into a completely different conversation. But this is having a lot of things threatening it, I would say. But in terms of interest rates, here's the challenge. I believe they're definitely going up. And by the year's end, here's the challenge. So in the past, if we were able to control inflation, which is the government's job, is to control this runaway inflation, we have to raise the federal funds rate over the rate of inflation. That's the way, and it's not guaranteed to work. Just because they raise the federal funds rate to, let's say, the inflation rate or above, it doesn't guarantee. We could have, the inflation could be so entrenched into the fabric of our economy. It could take, even after that occurred, years for it to dig its way out. So I think we have a lot more work to do with, if we're using interest rates as our primary tool, and actually the only tool, to fight inflation, because we haven't raised it to the rate of inflation yet. So if that's what we're doing, now I know we're aiming for some soft landing, but I don't think it's going to be achieved. So in the past, 10%, 15%, 20% interest rates were what was needed to get inflation under control. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see it eventually have to get taken there, if in fact what we're fighting is an inflation war. And that's what we're fighting.
So let's take it from and I think that you're right on. So let's just take it from this standpoint. And again, we don't have crystal balls, but I'm going to put it out there, what my thoughts are here, because, I've been in business since 1989. I've been through a couple of these ups and downs, and, I understand enough of the financial market to know that, there's, risk versus reward. So if you were financing or lending money to someone buying a home in the last several of years, it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? Because, if I lend you $500,000 and your house is appreciating 20% a year, I'm pretty insulated, right? So, the risk reward there, hey, look, I'm not making any money with my cash in the bank. I can't even get a 0.1%, in my savings account. So if I lend it to you at 4%, I've got plenty of cash. I'm going to lend it to you. I'll be in good shape, right? So it's very easy to say that there's a lot of money in the markets, cash in the markets, that we're flooding. And then you have mortgage-backed securities. Hey, look, you've got the government buying mortgages. We're going to compete with them. So when you're looking at the 10-year treasury, it's in direct competition with mortgage-backed securities. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but these are right. This is, what do you invest in? Do you invest in the 10-year treasury? Do you invest in a mortgage-backed security? So, when we look at this and we say, okay, all right, it's very obvious to see or to say that I would doubt that we're going to see 20% increase in real estate values anytime year over year, like we have, maybe for the next decade or 15 years, maybe never. Who knows, right? People that are investing in mortgages are going to want more money in order to do it because the risk is greater. If they have to take a chance on you and you don't pay, they're going to be stuck with the loan. Right now, however that's chopped up before it was in derivatives in the last crash and all that stuff, how many times, how many ways can you sell a mortgage? But I'm going to say this, I would not be at all surprised if we don't see 8% 30-year mortgages. And in fact, what I think that we're going to see, just like the automobile getting financed for 7 years, I think we're going to push these rates to a point that the only way that real estate's going to sell is if we go to the 40-year mortgage.
Well, there's been talks about that. I mean, anything's pops. That might be one of the life preservers they throw at this thing to see what they can do. I mean, we've there was talks about the the 40-year mortgage.
It's refi.
I don't know.
That's
Yeah,
refi.
I mean,
That
yeah,
puts you in the
right.
40.
Yeah, we'll attempt some stuff. I mean, we're not going to just let it. I mean, we're going to have to attempt some stuff in the political climate. They're going to have to try, or at least pretend like they're trying. So, I mean, anything's possible. I don't know. For me, I love the data. I absorb it. I formulate my own observations based on it. But for me, I don't have to, read the tea leaves and the charts and the Fed economic data and the CPI and this and that. It's just, it was so crystal clear how we got here. It was injections of stimulus, but we overshot the mark. We overstimulated the biggest asset class in the world. That's why we have foreign investors here trying to get into these markets. It's the biggest asset class in the world. If we lose it, we lose everything. When it'll have a ripple effect, and you see every big economy in the world did the same thing. So there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there think this is some big orchestrated crash, and we're going to crash the whole world's economy, and we're going to come up with some new social whatever. I don't know. It's not my job. My job, I'm just a real estate guy who's trying to be level-headed and just say let's make some smart choices here. But the realities are, I mean, you can get caught up in the data until the cows come home, and it's not going to save you. This is just basically we overheated, overshot the mark, and now we're dealing with the blowback. Buckle up and strap in. And your market's going to behave differently than my market. It's just the way it is. It's always been that way. So you can't just expect every market to crash at the same time. It's not going to do that. Now it's just really just examining properties by a property by property basis to see if it warrants an offer. Because now panic and fear clearly has taken over these markets. It's the cat's out of the bag. The cat's out of the bag, right? So that's kind of where we're at now, my friend.
Scott, let me ask you one more question, man, and I'll let you jump off. And Melissa, we'll take a couple more, but we know Scott, he said 10 minutes. And look, we appreciate the time that you've given us. And guys, let's, have it up for Scott and cruise over to his channel and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to Scott Walters' YouTube channel. Scott, what's going to happen to, and we're talking about rates going up, and we're talking about inventory, and we're talking about, investors being a third of the buyers, and many for the last several of years. Not all of them are Wall Street investors, though we know the Wall Street investors are getting hit hard. They're really getting it fed to them, right? Some people would say they're happy that it's happening because, why are we, why is Wall Street buying houses? A lot of people feel that way. But let's just take debt. We know it's going up. The debt that is really going up, the appetite that is really changing is for commercial loan debt, right? So we have, guys, if you're investing in real estate as a small business, call it mom and pop shop, and you're buying houses that you're not living in. These are not primary residences. Most of the people are trying to do that in LLCs and things like that, and they're getting commercial loans for them, right? So they're buying real estate with a loan, and I don't want to lose you guys here with the numbers and things, because this is where we get in the weeds. But when you buy a house, you amortize that loan payment over a principal and interest payment over 30 years. when you buy a commercial property or a house, not a commercial property, but you have a commercial loan on it, most banks, commercial lenders only lock that rate in for the investor to buy that rental for 5 years or maybe 10, right? They amortize it over a shorter period of time, most 25 years, my experience. And then they have a 25-year amortization schedule, but your note is due in 5 years or 10 years. So let's just take, for example, you have 10 rental properties, and you bought those rental properties when you could get a 4.5% commercial loan. Well, it's been 5 years now, and your loan is due. And now they're going to refinance you at 8% because it's riskier. You almost doubled your interest payment, right? And let's say that they look at it and they say, well, we're not comfortable with the percentage that we financed. Now we want to reevaluate the property, and we want you to put down more cash because we want to limit our exposure here. Scott, what's going to happen to these landlords?
Well, friends, and final thoughts, because I'm gonna jump off, but I'll let you guys continue on. I want to thank you right now for having me on. I love you. I love Todd, Melissa, the audience, everybody here. Thank you so very much. Yeah, I mean, that's just another elephant in the room, really, Todd. What's going on out there? I've heard some reports of exactly what you just said. It's something else to contend. I think my advice moving forward is just to continue to take a deep breath, pause. I've heard you say that as well, Todd. Get in the hands of somebody you can trust. If you can find them, we'll help you if needed, of course. And really just, I think it's time to really watch very closely. I think we're going to have more news come out, and I don't think it's necessarily going to be rainbows and sunshine. I think we got some more things to watch, and that is one of them, and it's a biggie. That is a big one. But there's a lot that I think we're going to have to monitor moving forward, and we're going to do our best to continue to do that for all of you, the best of our ability. Just try to get you centered and surrounded and with like-minded people, and be iron sharpens iron, because I mean, at the end of the day, we got some work to do. I think we can all agree on that. We're not out of the woods here. I think we can all agree with that. It's now just watching this one and watch some of the news that comes in to identify how much attention should we be paying to this, right now. And right now, it has my full and undivided attention, and I know it does yours as well. So congratulations to everybody viewing today.
Thank you so much, buddy. It's good to see you, and we'll be talking in the next couple of days, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, guys.
Thank you,
we'll
Scott.
answer a couple more questions here, guys. So, Melissa, what do you have on tap for us?
Yeah, we've got Jordan Bressler actually did 3 questions in a row. So I'm just going to go right down the row. He said, so is it the builder's responsibility to bring these affordable houses to market? Is it the seller's responsibility to lower their prices to meet the affordable tag? Or is it the consumer's responsibility to pick out an affordable house?
Yeah, I mean, these are all wrapped around the same thing. So it's the affordable house is really what's in question here. For builders, the problem is that there is so much red tape in developing a property right now to where they can build a community of houses. And they're really forced with the high cost. I mean, look, I'm not siding with them. I'm just telling you the fact. I remember, having a conversation with Secretary of HUD, several years ago, and a little one-on-one, and saying, "Hey, look, what are we doing here for the builders?" And he had said, "Hey, there's so much red tape right now. I mean, this is the problem for affordable housing." And so what happens is the builder gets in a situation where, they want to build a big house because they need to profit as much as they can for the money that they had spent. So I think that we're going to see legislation start to be presented. We're seeing it now for, tiny houses. I know I've seen some talk of bills that are on the table for tiny home communities, and I think the bigger issue is that, a lot of these communities they don't want the affordable housing in their community. And I think that's another challenge. They say, yeah, we all need affordable housing, but not here, not in my neighborhood or not in my community. And I think so there's a big gap here. It's a big issue. Now, as far as, the short term of a big house selling for less, the builders building the neighborhoods that they're building right now, I think that what we're going to see is they're going to be slashing prices ultimately to dump the inventory that they have. And we're already starting to see where a lot of these builders are packaging, lots up and selling them wholesale to, investors that will build rental houses on the lots. So, the homeowner of the existing home, they may not be in a position where they have to sell, and they may hang on because they have low interest rates and, they don't want to sell their house for less and there's nowhere for them to go. But the investors, the flippers, the home builders, the ones that they're just bleeding out every single day that the house is sitting there or the lot is sitting there vacant, we're going to see those take the biggest hit. Exactly like we did in 2008 when the housing market started to tumble in 2005. And I've said it before, that's when the headlines in the newspapers, how we had the news back then, it said the overpriced housing market. And that was in 2005, at least here in Maryland. And then it took several of years. We considered the peak. So in 2005, they said the housing market was overpriced. Buyer exuberance continued for another year, despite the headlines. And we kind of peaked in 2006, and then it was downhill from there. So, I think, and where we saw the biggest hits first was in new construction.
Let's talk about real quick, because this goes along with that. We've got Michael Ross. This week, lots of Dallas-Fort Worth developers started fire saling their land holdings. Are you seeing this in Maryland? Obviously, Scott has left.
Yeah,
but
we don't have anywhere near the new community development that's going on as you do in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we're not really seeing it yet here. So, we're a state that is very difficult to break ground in. We have, a lot of critical bay areas that require, even a lot more with stormwater management. There's a lot more legislation here, a lot of red tape. So we're not seeing the big development like you guys are seeing there. But we are seeing builders here, yes, starting to sell their lots to what we call scattered lot builders. So that was like what I was never a big builder. I built on scattered lots or, tore down existing homes and communities and built new homes, because the infrastructure was already there with water and sewer. But we are starting to see that where these big builders are starting to sell to more scattered lot builders or smaller builders or investors that are going to turn them into rentals. So yes, but we're not seeing it to the scale that you're seeing it yet.
How about Lexi? Hi, thank you for your question.
Hi, Lexi.
How confident are you all on the spring inventory? I feel like Todd is very confident that could change everything.
Yeah, I think we are going to see inventory increase. I think there are a lot of people that are sitting on the sidelines waiting to put their house on the market. I'm getting a lot of questions from sellers. And I'm going to talk to you for a second if you're a seller. And Lexi, I know you're a buyer and we appreciate you. And we're doing everything that we can to help you find that home that you're not going to overpay. And you're very bright and you do a lot of this homework yourself. And, but what I'm going to say is for the sellers that are sitting on the sidelines waiting, you may not want to wait very long. As we just said, and we started out with this podcast talking about Fannie Mae's article that was recently published that said that this may be temporary, this bump up in sales, in, demand. Who knows what could happen? So if you are thinking about selling this spring, I would start talking to your agent and start thinking about doing it sooner than later. But yeah, I do think we'll see some inventory hit the market. It's not going to be anywhere near the way it was 10 years ago. But I do think we're going to see year-over-year inventory increase a little bit this spring. It's just a guess, educated guess. But I think there are also a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines that are ready to jump in at the opportunity to buy it. So again, will we see a massive cool down like we're expecting, or you would like to hope? That's going to be completely dependent on the buyer pool. And that's the mystery right now. We just don't know. We don't know how many of them there are, and how many of them are willing to jump back in the game and pay at the top price with the top mortgage rates that we've seen in decades.
Mm-hmm. We have a super chat here. Thank you so much, NVSTR.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your opinions. Really appreciated and valued. I'm buckling up and getting ready to buy my first starter home with an 80-year term.
With an 80-year term. Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, buckle up. That's Scott Walters saying there, guys. And wasn't he great? I mean,
yeah,
Scott is he's a friend, and and like I said, I respect him. He's in the trenches every single day working and helping buyers and sellers. So I completely respect
you guys could talk for hours. Truly.
Oh, we could.
It could all day long.
Yep.
And it's such valuable information. And I know that everyone else feels the same way, because they're just, it's just constant questions, comments, and they're talking to each other. It's fantastic. We really appreciate it, guys. Very, very much.
Yep. So let's take one more.
Okay, one more. Let's do, give me one moment. How about this one? Curtis, why is the South holding strong and still growing in some spots? When will the South start falling like the West Coast?
So the South had the most, when we looked a couple shows ago, and you guys can find that on our channel, but we talked about some of the areas in the heat maps where we saw the most domestic migration. And, the South picked up a lot. So a lot of the people moved from the West Coast to areas like the Carolinas, Florida, Arizona, Texas, Tennessee. We saw probably some of the hottest domestic migration to these areas. And, a lot happened through the pandemic. And we saw, when people went on lockdown and went into remote working environments, they started going to the warmer climates, right? To the beach and resort towns and things like that. And, and some of these areas had very affordable housing. So they're the ones that appreciated the most over the last 3 years. They've seen the most increase in a lot of the scenarios. But the number one reason why we saw the pricing in the South skyrocket the way that it did was the iBuyers and these, institutional buyers buying these properties for rental, for rental income. But I do think that we're going to see some major turnaround on this. And, I think it's coming. I think we've seen some of the highest property appreciations. Naples, for example, I think they went up 70% in, 2 years, something crazy. And, but I think that we are going to see these areas in the South. A lot of them are Airbnbs. A lot of them are investment properties. And, as we're saying, as we see inventory values increase with people that must sell, that's the key. People that must sell, we're going to see prices drop in those areas. There's no choice. And I'll leave you with this thought because, Scott kind of touched on it and was talking about, people, if they can afford the payments. And, and not that anyone's right or wrong but I can tell you that what I saw in 2008 were people that could afford the payments that walked away from their homes. And because they were realizing that when the neighbor sold for $150,000 less than what they were paying, same house, they said, why are we going to keep this house when the neighbor's selling for $150,000 less? Our property values are tumbling. And I personally know people that could have paid they could have stayed, they could have made it, they could have paid their mortgages, but they didn't. And they just let the houses be foreclosed on. And, so I'm not convinced that we won't see that again, right? Depending on how things go. I don't think it's as dependent on the liar loans or the no doc loans and the things that, a lot of people put all the credibility in comparison to the two markets, what we saw in 08 and what we could potentially see in 2023. I think that once people get in their mind that they're overpaying for something and they're in debt and they can't afford to make repairs, if people start walking away from it, we'll see an increase in inventory and prices will come down as a result. But guys, we thank you so much. What a great show tonight. Scott was great. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, we'd love it if you would do that now and hit that alert bell. You'll know every time we upload content. And if you like the video, you can let us all know that you did by hitting that thumbs up, guys. Melissa, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Another full day, another great day, another great Tuesday. And it was awesome. Thank you all. And we're going to have the follow-up show and we'll get to some of those questions that we weren't able to answer tonight.
Yep. Stay tuned, guys. We appreciate you and see you next time.
See you next time.